Hello everyone, I hope all of you had a wonderful Christmas. Welcome back. We have episode 14 that premiered this week. It was quite an intense episode because Bree is still dealing with a certain Rob Cameron. That's a lot going on there, and looks like William is being set up for a trap by his own captain. So, why don't we discuss all of the important moments that happened in episode 14, titled, You Dinna Get Used to It. May I apologize if I badly mispronounce that? Sometimes I think I have the language and the dialect down, but it never happens. Now, this episode gets to focus more on Lord John, and we actually begin the episode with a flashback back about 3 years before. He is in London discussing the events with his brother, and basically Henry and William have just signed up for the army. They're getting ready for that, and they're discussing how they have different opinions about how to go about resolution with America. And Hal, who is Lord John's brother, he makes him promise that he will never basically fancy the idea of American independency. And immediately we flash forward to 3 years later, and Lord John is obviously being forced to swear his allegiance to the American Revolution. And obviously he's doing this because he's going by an alias because of the situation he had a couple episodes ago. And amazingly, I really thought they were going to be onto him, but no, they actually believed his story. And of course, this is why he has to play along, so they continue to believe his story. But yeah, they don't suspect him. Now with Jamie and Claire, they are actually being forced, and I use the word forced, to basically host a dinner in General Washington's honor by a lieutenant or Lieutenant Buteman, if that's how you say it. And I have to say I love the character Mrs. Fig. She owns that house. The way the man just barges in and says, "Hey, this will be a great house for a dinner," and she's like, "Excuse me, you can't just barge in here." But he's just continuously making demands of "No, this is the perfect setting, we're gonna have it here," even against Jamie's wishes. And the way Mrs. Fig is like, "Okay, then you can join me in the kitchen, I have an apron that'll fit you." I just love the way she delivered that. It was just brilliant. So while Claire is preparing for the dinner, she's in the marketplace, and she happens to run into a certain historical figure, Marquis de Lafayette. And again, I hope I said that right. I haven't done accents in a minute. But yeah, she runs into him, and they have a fun little interaction, and just the way that he really wants to bring all of his foods and everything, and especially cheese, mostly as an apology for running into her. But he's got this wonderful spirit, and you can see that as well when they're at the dinner. And interestingly, he is the reason why Claire happens to meet a certain somebody with her original name, Beauchamp, which apparently in English they pronounce it more like Beecham, which that severely confused me when I was watching season 1. I was like, wait a minute, it's spelled in a French way, but why are you saying it like Beecham? Listening to it, it just didn't make sense to me. But now I know why. Anyway, so yeah, she meets a man with the last name, and she wonders if he's of relation. But let's say that he might not be of relation. And we'll actually revisit his character in a little bit. Now, General Washington is very gracious to the Frasers for hosting the dinner, and he actually presents them with one of the first American flags, which, how much of an honor would that have been at the time, especially? Yeah, imagine Claire living this moment, never in her earlier years would she have imagined this happening. But yes, it was a very nice gesture on his part. And Jamie makes a toast. And yeah, it's a nice scene. It's nice to introduce the historical characters and see how they interact with the fictional characters. I always love when they manage to work that in. Now, one thing that Jamie learns from, I guess it was General Lee who discusses this with him. Jamie is actually going to be in command, because he's the brigadier general. He's going to be in command of 300 men, which is way more men than he's ever been in command of. So he confides in Claire that he's a bit nervous about that, but she tries to tell him, like, oh, he'll be fine. Later in the episode, we actually get to see Jamie commanding his men, and he's really making an impression on the men. Like, they already respect him because he treats them with respect, which, like, hi. That's all you gotta do. And while Jamie is speaking with his men, Claire is also doing some exams not too far away. And while she's doing that, she happens to spot Lord John. Yeah, so that is the regiment where he ended up. And as soon as she calls Jamie over and Jamie and Lord John see each other, Lord John immediately surrenders. He's just like, well, at this point, there's no point in lying. So they take him back to the house, and he is a prisoner again. And he tries, like, talking to Claire while she's checking his eye. And he's clearly not happy about seeing the American flag hoisted in his house. So yeah, he just keeps getting slapped in every episode. But yes, Claire does a little diagnosis with his eye. She says that there's just an issue with one of the muscles, and she has to move it back into place. One of the hardest scenes to watch, which I will say I'm grateful they don't show it. But before she performs the procedure, Jamie comes in and he's asking Lord John, like, what were you thinking? And I'm like looking at Jamie like, are you kidding me? You had the gall to leave him with an American regiment. I'm getting riled up. And they literally took him as prisoner, you know that. And he was going to be hanged. He had to escape. Denzel literally explained this to you. And he's asking Lord John, what were you thinking? And I'm grateful here that Lord John actually does stand up for himself. And he says basically the same thing to Jamie. Like, he did what he had to survive. Like, hi. Like, I'll say I love the scenes between Jamie and Claire now, but whenever it comes to Lord John, Jamie just still drives me insane. I know he's mad, I get it, but some of his character choices or understandings of the situations don't entirely make sense to me. It just doesn't feel right. It is weird to me that Jamie, who is a very intelligent man, he just lets his feelings get a little too, like, they take over too much. And any sense that he has just goes out the window. Okay, I vented that. But yes, so after that little venting that they have, Claire performs the procedure while Jamie has to hold him down, which is a very uncomfortable situation for all three of them. Most painful for Lord John, but uncomfortable for all. Before we conclude the Jamie, Claire, and Lord John part of the story, we do have to catch up with William, who has returned to the British camp, and he's basically he's the delivery boy. And he's basically scolded by the officer that he delivers the message to because he's a mess. He's missing his gorget, which he obviously used as payment when he was at the brothel a couple episodes back. So he's just not presentable to this man. So yeah, before he sends him off, he just tells him, like, go clean up, you're a mess. So while he's in a tent, he happens to have a couple of visitors who are Jane, who we met at the brothel, and her young sister, Frances, also known as Fanny. And she tries to explain to him, so this was the officer that William was basically trying to buy out a night with Jane. So Harkness is the man, and he has a history of abusing women. Very disturbing. And we learn that basically he returned one night, and that's when Jane and Frances had to escape. And we don't learn the full story yet, but there is more to it. But she asks William for his protection because she mostly is worried about her young sister. And he does actually agree to protect them. And he actually has her basically become his laundress, which she's not too crazy about. And she doesn't know how to do a lot of things, being that she worked in a brothel most of her life. So he tries to explain to her, like, even if you can't get equipment from the others, then you should buy some, and he hands her money, and she apparently doesn't even know how to spend money because she never got to see her wages. This brothel sounds worse and worse. But yes. So basically, she's just doing what she can to survive, and he's trying to help her as best as he can, and she still feels like she needs to repay the favor the brothel way, let's just say. But William declines, and he's trying not to have feelings for her. He does kiss her at one point, but then he's like, no, I can't go forward with this, because he doesn't want to do it out of obligation, basically. And later on, Jane is thinking that she does just want to leave for New York with her sister, but William still wants to protect her, of course. But he really wants to know, like, what really happened. So she does tell him that not only did Harkness return one night, but he wanted Frances. And Frances is a very young child, like maybe about 10 years old or so, which is beyond disturbing. Anyway, so yes, he wanted her, and then Jane obviously didn't want to leave her alone with that man, so she offered to be in the room with them. But she had a plan, obviously, in this situation. She had actually stolen a knife from the kitchen, and she was going to stab him in the back, but he figured out what was happening, and he turned around, and she ended up, like, cutting his throat. So she killed him, long story short. And in that moment, she and Frances had to escape. So this is the awful situation that they're in, where not only did we think, like, this man was going to hunt her down, but she killed this man, so now she could be wanted for murder, arrested, hanged. So William does actually promise that he will not turn her in, that her secret is safe with him, and he just wants to continue to protect them, which is very noble of him. Like, he was obviously in a bad place in the couple episodes back, but I will say in this episode he really does take on the role of a protector, and he tries to be honorable, and he tries to be caring, which is the nature of Jamie that is in him that I love to see. I don't like seeing angry William who cannot stand the world. It's like he made enemies of, like, everyone in that episode. So it was nice to see him, like, caring for a character, like somebody who could distract him from his situation, someone who could actually, like, test him. Honestly thought this was a good subplot, and unfortunately it doesn't end there. So William is given another task by Captain Richardson, who we know is a spy for the Americans, and we don't know what to make of this quite yet. He hands William a correspondence that is meant for Hessian soldiers, and he tells him to deliver it to the camp. However, there's more to it than just delivering a note. So now we're going to bring Bamp back into play here. I'm sorry if I said that name wrong again. Anyway, he actually comes back to Lord John's house, and as soon as Lord John sees him, Lord John obviously has the face of, oh my goodness, I know who you are. So we're all thinking like, wait, how do you know this man? So he asks for privacy. Claire leaves because she was checking his eye. And we learn that Beauchamp is actually just a name that he took when he married a baron's sister, I believe. And he's actually an Englishman. He's not French. So I don't know if there would still be any relation to Claire, or maybe her family tree is a lot more messed up than we thought it was. I don't know. Anyway, so he actually seems to have a history with Lord John, and we learn that he helped him escape a prison, I think back in London or something like that. So he's basically doing this as a favor to him, and he tells him that Captain Richardson is planning to turn William over to the Hessians, and he's trying to get him captured so he can discredit the name of Grey. And I'm like, okay. Like, I don't get how that discredits your name. I guess it was a different time, but anyway. The main thing is William is in trouble because he's basically going to be killed. So Lord John actually confides in Jamie and Claire. He tells them what he's been told, and Jamie is unsure about whether to trust this information, but Claire actually does confirm, like, yeah, no, I actually learned that Richardson is indeed a spy, and she actually tells Lord John the news as well when she learned this, and he gets a little upset about that because she kept this information from him. But Jamie does seem to, like, understand that the situation is kind of dire now, but he also cannot just abandon 300 men. So Lord John actually comes up with a plan that he can be a prisoner that is on parole, and he happens to be set free, aka he's allowed to go save William. So Ian is given the task to take Lord John to the Hessian camp, where they will try to save William. We are probably going to see that in the next episode. But I love the scene because there's never 100% peace between Lord John and Jamie in this episode, but you can tell that there is this mutual respect that they have for each other and mutual care that they have for William. And the way that Jamie says, "Go save our son," oh, that is seriously giving, like, Lord John some serious credit here, which, that was a beautiful moment. So maybe we can't be too mad at Jamie now. I don't know. We'll see how he is the rest of the season. I thought that was a beautiful scene. And yeah, hopefully William will get out of his situation, because we see him arrive at the Hessian camp at the end of the episode, and he gives them the correspondence. He doesn't know what's being told in this letter. He's invited to stay for coffee at first, and then when the letter is read, he's invited to stay for dinner, which is code for you're screwed. I also don't know if I mentioned the part where Wainwright, who is actually Beauchamp, he's Lord John's stepbrother. I don't remember if I mentioned that or not, so I'm adding that in here. They seem to have a little more going on too, if you know what I mean. But we don't explore that too much, so I don't know if we're going to. We don't see Ian and Rachel too much in this episode, but we see that they are still in honeymoon mode. And Ian is also basically acting as a spy, like watching over the British camps to see what their next move is. And he learns that they're going to head north. So that's information that he relays to Jamie. But one interesting scene is before he goes off, like with Lord John, he actually has a nice moment with Rachel where she wants to learn how to do the war paint that he uses. And he shows her, like he draws like a dove over his heart. And he tells her that his uncle said that when you go to battle, you carry your woman with you. And he tells her that she is his dove. That was so sweet. I will say, even though I've mentioned that their relationship was a little rushed this season, but I do love them together. Like, they really are a great couple, and I really cannot wait to see more of them. Now, let's talk about Bree. So we don't see Roger in this episode. It's just the main focus is on Bree. And she goes back to Lallybroch because she is going to meet the locksmith, which, of course, she missed him. It's too relatable. Anyway, she notices not only the note that is left on the door by the locksmith, but she notices there is a light on in her house. So, like, huh? Who is in there? So she goes to get a shotgun, and she returns, and she watches the house from the bushes. And she doesn't notice anything at first, but then as she gets up, she sees another light turn on downstairs, and there's at least 2 men inside, which is freaking creepy. But yeah, right as she's about to, like, see who they might be, guess who pulls up? No, not Rob Cameron. Not yet. The van with Ernie, Fiona, and the kids, and I'm thinking, no, this is like the worst possible timing you could bring them. But yeah, Bree runs and tells them, no, like, don't get out of the car, stay in there. And right as she runs to the car, like, the 2 men run out of the house. She shoots at them to try to keep them away. And one tries to attack her as she's getting in the van. She manages to pull his mask off right as they're driving off. Now, I couldn't tell who this man was. I don't remember what her co-workers look like. I can imagine they work at the dam. It would make sense that Rob Cameron would have some kind of influence over them, but I don't know for sure if they are the men from work. But I'm just putting that out there, just in case they are. But yeah, as they start to drive away, Rob Cameron pulls up, and dear God, it's like, this man knows no boundaries at all. Like, what operation is he running? But after Bree gives him an evil glare, she tells Ernie to drive, so they manage to get out of there. And once they're far enough away, the car breaks down, of course. So she goes to try and fix it, and she and Fiona are talking, and Ernie mentioned, like, you should probably try to go and meet up with Roger in Boston, because Ernie doesn't know about the time traveling thing. Bree is mentioning, like, Ernie might be right. It might be time to meet up with Roger, aka time to travel to another time. Because she doesn't know what's going on with the operation that this Rob Cameron is running. And who knows how far it goes, how deep it goes. Like, there could be more men involved. Police are obviously not going to be helpful, as we saw in the last episode. So this is not just because she wants to meet up with Roger, but it's because their lives depend on it. And yeah, their lives depend on it because, like, Rob Cameron knew to go to Fiona and Ernie's house to question them, like, about Bree and the kids, most likely. We don't learn what the questions were, but it's so creepy. Like, he has their information. That's beyond so creepy. Like, my God, this guy gets worse and worse the more we learn about him. It's like Bonnet all over again. But yeah. He's definitely an interesting villain, I will say. It would be interesting to learn more about, like, what his motives are here, other than that he's poor. Like, no, that's not it. You can be poor but also be a decent human being. There's more to it. But yeah, I don't know if we're gonna learn more about Rob or not. Somehow Bree and the kids are gonna have to get back to the Stones, so I don't know if they're gonna have like one more run-in with Rob Cameron. But boy, if Bree gets a chance to hit him again, I wouldn't be against that. We'll see. Alright, and that was episode 14. It looks like we have some interesting stuff coming up as Jamie and Claire are joining the army and officially going back into battle. And of course, like I said, Bree and the children will be at some point rejoining Roger. And yeah, we'll see what happens with William. Looks like Lord John will most likely rescue him. And yeah, we'll see where it goes from there. Hopefully I explained all of the historical context as best as I could. There's a lot, guys, like so much information with the war and everything. It's a lot to comprehend, but I just try to get like the simple facts out there. Try to get the names right. We know that doesn't always happen, but we try. I hope you all enjoyed this video, and let me know what you guys think about this episode, what you think will happen in episode 15, and where do you think the characters are going to go from there. Alright, again, hope you had a wonderful Christmas holiday. Have a wonderful, wonderful New Year, and I will see you all soon. Bye, everyone!